yourself down and say, "Oh, I don't like this, I don't like that," or be nitpicky. It's like if you caught somebody else's attention with what you were doing at the time, that says something, and you shouldn't ignore it. You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
there has been times where you'll be at band practice and you're just playing a riff, and then your drummer gets on and starts playing something and changes the whole perspective of it, and then it becomes a different vibe.
Hey everyone, how's it going? On this episode of the KDigitals podcast, I'm joined by Zilloh.
What's up, man?
Every podcast we have, the goal is to always dive into another artist, learn about their origin, their process, and just learn more about who they are and see what we can learn from it. But like when I start this off, like I mentioned, John, always love to learn from the artist. How would you define yourself?
Um, well, when it comes to defining yourself, I guess it really depends. I mean, for me, I kind of vary between different moods and genres, and so it's kind of hard to kind of put a label on it. And I try to stray away from that a lot, mainly because, why limit yourself? Like one day I could be feeling a hip hop beat, the next day I could be doing punk rock, and the day after that I could be doing metal. I mean, but I'm still the same person at the end of the day. So I think by not limiting yourself to one instrument or one style of music just keeps your brain open to be creative. One day you might not be feeling that R&B song you want to try to finish. You might have to kind of push through it and maybe play something else for a little while, but always keep yourself creative.
For sure. What, I guess, when did you first start taking music like seriously? And when you did, what was like the style? Like, did you get into it? Oh, I'm gonna start doing as a metal band, or I'm gonna start doing as like a R&B.
Yeah. Well, in the beginning, it was always metal. I started with metal mainly because my two best friends, that I'm in the band with now, basically, always had that metal influence on me. So we would jam in the garage, and then we started a band, and it actually became pretty successful. We would, sell about 200 tickets, a show. And for San Jose, that was pretty good at the time. So we felt like, oh, we have some talent, so let's push this. And metal was exciting because it's very fast. You know what I mean? It's intricate and very fast and has to be precise. Whereas like kind of R&B is kind of about the soul feeling of it, or like the lax, or the words. Metal is more obviously screaming, yelling stuff, but there's always a message behind it, right? But it's about the energy. I think it's about the energy is what I really like. But started with metal, and I was about 16, I think, when I really like started pushing it. So
Okay. So because you kind of like are able to dance around, are there, I guess, what would you say are your influences on the metal side, and what are your influences on the not metal side?
let's see. I mean, on the not metal side, I've been really listening to like Mike Posner, Black Bear, artists like that really kind of started from nothing and started with just themselves and a guitar and really kind of expanded into that other realm. As far as metal, my favorite band's Killswitch Engage. So shout out them.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Interesting. Okay.
that's my favorite all time band. But I also really love As Lay Dying and Darkest Hour and Misery Signals. Those are all bands that I grew up listening to and kind of practice riff styles. Also Black Dahlia Murder. So they were really great because very intricate, fast stuff, and that's kind of what we try to incorporate in our sound nowadays, because that energy is there.
Yeah.
So I guess those are the main ones. There's tons of others, but I mean, I'm sure you can go on forever.
Yeah, right.
So
That's cool, man. So then, do you have, I guess, like a preference of like, I kind of like doing more of the R&B stuff like this and focusing on that. The metal's still fun. Like, how do you?
I think the metal's still fun mainly because like I can still write riffs and be a part of like a project, that's kind of bigger than me. But in a sense, I think I draw more towards R&B and kind of EDM stuff now because that's what I've been writing and working with. A lot more artists that come to me kind of have that genre, and I myself have been putting out music in that kind of context. So it's starting to pick up from that. So maybe that's just something that either I'm more drawn to or that I just kind of I'm doing at the moment. And so again, mainly the one thing that I've noticed and is to really allow yourself to open and really kind of understand that at that time, like look at what's going around you, and then that has also influences on how you react to things. So again, I'm working with a lot of R&B artists, so therefore I'm editing it, I'm mixing it, I'm quantizing and doing all the stuff, vocal editing, and even adding instrumentation of my own. And so therefore it keeps me inspired into that genre. And then when I go to just write on my own, like let's say I come into the studio and it's late night and nobody's here, and I just turn on my music, and the first kind of chords I'll play on a keyboard or something will always be kind of R&B-esque, and it's interesting because that's what I'm surrounded by a lot. But then now, since I'm in the metal band, it's starting to bring that dynamic back out of me, and so I've written like 2 or 3 songs from metal. So I guess it just depends, but definitely all the people that you surround yourself during the week really kind of influence that, I think, highly. Like your buddy's like, check out this new CD. This band's badass. You're gonna listen to it, and if you're stoked on it and he's stoked on it, that's gonna rub off on you.
Interesting. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's what I think.
Yeah. So then, like, because obviously, like, you sing, you play guitar, you mentioned you kind of do drums, and you're doing all the editing and recording for other people.
Mm-hmm.
I guess. So when you're trying to make a R&B song or even an EDM song and then metal song, like, is there a different process in which you approach a song, or is it like, oh, this is just my process for creating music in general? Like,
I'd say when it comes to metal, I always start with a guitar riff, almost like 99% of the time, because I feel like guitar was what I really originally innated with, so it kind of helps me think. I actually use the guitar a lot more, as some people use the piano. I use the guitar a lot because I can, try different chord progressions and kind of sing over myself, and then from there transcribe that into the digital world. So like if it's metal, then obviously a metal riff, and like depending on the speed of how I played it will kind of dictate how the drums are going to kind of go.
Yeah.
And so I use that as a foundation, but not always. I mean, there has been times where you'll be at band practice and you're just playing a riff, and then your drummer gets on and starts playing something and changes the whole perspective of it, and then it becomes a different vibe. So feeding off other people. But when it comes to R&B, it's very different because I always try to go for a message. So I kind of pick a topic and stick with that, and then I'll make a beat, and then depending on where that goes, it'll dictate how the vocals go. And the reason why I do it that way is because a lot of the times people will, I don't know, maybe play certain chord progression, and then they automatically know, oh, well, I should rap over this, or I should do this. I don't like to take that approach. I kind of take it in a different sense where depending on the vibe of the beat that I created that day, then I counteract that with a different vocal melody. And so, like, let's say if it's like an R&B, very chill, lo-fi vibe like this, I'm going to go for more of a soulful vocal, more intimate vocal, not so many layers, and very open, because that's what you hear in hip-hop. You hear, like, spitting a verse, like that catchy hook. But in metal, it's all about how complicated can I make it.
Yeah.
You see, it's the exact contrast, know? So I guess, and that, and lyrics too, man. Lyrics are super important. Like, that message, again, is what's got to translate to people. And like this song that I'm working on now is called In Too Deep. I'm working on it with Jack D, which is producer, awesome producer, and my drummer for the band. So, we've worked on songs, but never really put two things together. So now it's like, we're going to give it that shot and put this out. Even though it's a different genre variant from what we're doing, it's like it's still our creative talents being explored.
Yeah,
in a sense.
Different sounds.
In different ways. So you never know what you're going to run into. I'd say, like, just be open. Like, again, I have my own set of songs and my own agenda, but then now that we wrote this song together, it's like that's the new plan, because we're both hyped about that at the moment. And I think when your friends and people around you show that interest and stuff, you should run with it. You shouldn't, like, second guess yourself and constantly put yourself down and say, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that, or be nitpicky. It's like, if you caught somebody else's attention with what you were doing at the time, that says something. And you shouldn't ignore it. You know what I mean? Like, most people ignore it and they're like, oh, no, it's just something I wrote really quick, And it's like, no, like, if you got that genuine reaction, like, whoa, that was really dope. Like, that was really good. Like, run with that, and I guarantee you it's only going to make it better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, cause I mean, like, so I know we're off camera talking about, like, you just got to put stuff out, right?
Yeah.
And there's times even on my end where I'm, like, trying to be very, like, perfect, or like, I'm not feeling it, and I feel like I should know better, so I won't do it. But then I'll show someone, like, a photo or something, like, oh, that's great. I'm like, it is? What? And
see, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You gotta keep that mindset, and if you don't tell yourself that every day, in a sense, then, like, what are you really doing? You're only kind of trying to, I don't know, like, do it as a hobby. Like, I want to do this full time. I want to do this every single day. So even if I'm not 100% focused on what I'm doing because I'll have a couple days off, I'll still do something music related for that day. And it can be kind of, I don't know, consuming at some time, but I like staying busy because by staying busy, it keeps me motivated to finish other projects because then it limits your time to work on those said projects, and it also makes you dependable in a sense, and people could depend on me to come in and record their demo and me give them ideas and constructive criticism and basically just try to help them correlate the whole song and put it together, and that's what I feel like I bring to the table is that I can play many different instruments, and so when someone's like, oh, I wonder what live drums would sound like, well, let's just record it, and then they like lose their mind because they usually when they come into one place they're only expecting like, okay, he's just production or he's just a guitar player, you know what I mean? But then you never really know someone's other talents unless you really ask, right? So it's like just sometimes by asking that question, I wonder what drums would sound like, can spark that creativity. How can we achieve that goal? Are we going to do live drums? Are we going to hire a drummer? Or can you play drums? And a lot of the times it's very interesting. Like I'll be working with an artist and they'll be in this like rock band or something, right? And then like they're like, oh, you have a keyboard? I'm like, yeah, I have a keyboard set up right there. And they just play beautiful classic piano. I'm like, what the it'll blow my mind. And I'm like, why don't you play stuff like that? He's like, oh no, that's just practice stuff. I'm like, but why? And then I start getting their brain thinking in a different context, and then literally by the next session, can we record this? And it's like this amazing classical piece, and like they constructed it and put it together, and it's like they're excited. You see what I mean? It sparks interest in somebody, and that's kind of what I want to be. Is like I want to be that beacon for all those people that don't have recording access or don't have like a full band access, and they can come to someone like me, and I can literally create them in their entire vision from nothing, you know what I mean? Just based off of asking your mutual interests. Like me and you can talk about guitars all day, I guarantee it. You know what I mean? But that's just based off of, like I didn't even know you played guitar until I seen your post. You're like, oh, I'm getting. Do you see what I mean? But everybody kind of has that like hidden talent or multifaceted like persona, I guess. So if you don't explore that, then you're really not like, I don't know. You're not. To me, you're not staying as motivated as you could be because you're limiting yourself to one thing, So, I don't know. Not trying to ramble, but basically...
It's all good.
But yeah, what I mean.
So interesting. So it's kind of like a bit of everything, right? And because of that, like, there's no like focus for you. But then when you're working with folks and you bring them in, exactly how all these different like stars connect. You're like, okay, well, I know you're really good at the guitar, but I can take that. Know what I know over here that you probably don't know, which is okay, and then fill in those gaps for you. And then we'll actually complete a full. So I guess with you, right, like based off our conversation, like on camera, off camera, you're clearly very into all this, right? So with all that said, like what is your like, I want to say like 5-year plan, right? But are you trying to be like an artist where like you are the face like Drake, where you're trying to be more of the back scenes kind of guy like maybe Metro Boomin? Like what?
In terms of being an artist, I, obviously want to be in the forefront. I want to be, to have that self, in a sense, identity as an artist, and that certain signature sound. I'm obviously after that. And I think I got something very unique. I mean, obviously nobody sounds like me singing. It's my voice. It's coming from me and my creative thoughts. I don't try to mimic anybody. There's certain styles that I do like, but I'll try to keep it to as authentic as possible. But I also do want to thrive in the production side because, again, being that beacon or that starting point for a lot of other artists is going to not only inspire myself to keep doing music, but it also inspires others, like those people that, like I said, the hidden talents that they discover they can do and they never knew. Maybe they were doing something a slightly different way, and I kind of like take a step back and be like, well, why don't you try it this way? Or maybe they don't have a drummer for their project, and I'm like, I'll program drums. We'll make it sound as authentic as possible, and then it gives them that missing link that they need. And so I guess both though, man. I mean, if you could shine in both, that'd be great, but why limit yourself? But I obviously want to put more time and energy into my solo project stuff because that's when I feel like I'm most creative, because obviously I'm only worried about what I'm feeling at the moment and stuff, you know.
Yeah, for sure. So then, like, what's if you someone was to take a step back and work with you? I guess what would be your like missing link? Like, what do you think is something you can is on your end we can work on that will help you grow
In terms of missing link, like for them or for myself.
for yourself?
For myself, it's again, you know, knowing that I get up every day and I'm working on something musical, and it keeps me, I don't know, happy. You know, it's like music is an escape in a lot of ways, and I think with everything going on, especially during this pandemic, it's like most people are at home, and when you're at home, maybe you're writing a song on an acoustic guitar. But who says that you couldn't go out to Guitar Center, buy a microphone, and record that song and just really give it the opportunity, work on it, practice it, and then you're the next Billie Eilish? Like, nobody knows unless you give yourself that opportunity and really just like kind of go for it. I mean, people are going to like it or they're going to not like it, but if you at least put it out there and you like it, then what does it matter? Like, if it gets successful, great. If it doesn't get successful, you're still doing it for the music.
Yeah.
You're not doing it for this like other reason, you know. Like for me, I get up every day and I'll write the first thing that comes to mind, or I'll hum a melody in my phone, and then later on it becomes a full song. You know, I always capture that idea, and now it's 2020, you know, like you can use your voice memos and import that into Logic and sample it and make a beat. You know, you could sample the rain outside of your house and put that in a lo-fi beat. Like, just once you really start thinking of your surroundings and how you can, you know, implicate that into something creative, you know, possibilities are endless, you know, honestly. Like, I do that all the time. Like, it was raining and I put my phone, I open my door, and I just put voice memos and I just leave it out there on the side, and I let it record for like 5 minutes. Put that in the back of a beat and you got your own rain sample.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's just about utilizing your creativity, you know, unlocking that.
For sure. So then, to kind of wrap it up, being someone that has really worked with a lot of artists and like are able to kind of like see where the potential is and then unlock it, do you think there's like a general piece of advice that you would see or you would give other artists, like, hey, like, here's what I've learned that you probably generally is like something a lot of people should know?
Record everything. Meaning, like, even if it's your phone, you don't have access to a studio, you don't have access to a recording software or anything, you still have a phone. Everybody has a phone, and everybody can record a rough idea. Play the beat from your car stereo and sing over it with your phone. And there's good enough demo recording for yourself to really get yourself an idea on what you need to work on. Like, if it's the pre-chorus, if it's the chorus, or if it's the verse. But once you kind of really, like, give yourself that raw, like, unedited kind of like punch in the face kind of say, you know, you really understand like what your strong suits are and what your weak points are, and just use that every day to kind of grow, because then by the time you do go into the studio, you're kind of like rehearsed in a sense, you know, you're in tune. You know like what your capabilities are, you know what you're looking for, and then the sessions usually tend to go smoother. And you may think it's like mundane practice, but it honestly is very helpful. I do it all the time. Like, if I'm driving to the grocery store, I'll toss on a new beat and I'll start just humming melodies to it. And then pretty soon it's like, oh, this sounds like it would be a song about this. And then just from driving to the grocery store, singing along in the car, even though that's not designated for music time, it's still like in between my day that I allowed myself to kind of share that creativity, you know, thought during the day. Rather than pushing it out and not doing anything, not listening to any music until like 8 p.m. at night, coming into the studio with no ideas. You know, whereas like, you know, I could have missed out on that opportunity. And yeah, I have tons, like if not hundreds of voice memos in my phone of just like little ideas. Maybe it's like a beat, you know, a guitar riff for the day. But I tend to go back and if I'm stuck on for ideas, I'll open that up and bam, right there I have something to practice or to kind of work with. And yeah, but I mean, number one is just practice.